Silent J here, back again with another review, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Benchmade Model 51. Actually what I'm going to do today is I'm going to skip all the specs and I'm going to put them in the description box. Just because, you know, saves time, and I feel awkward going through them. I don't know, that's just me. Anyway, so, get things started, I'll go over the things that I like again about this. Things that I do like about the 51 are, oddly enough, the pocket clip. It's more so for people who are actually going to EDC this balisong, but I find it just convenient for carrying it around, you know, rides pretty low in the pocket for the most part, and, you know, just throw it in there, you forget about it, hopefully you don't lose it from forgetting about it. But that aside, another thing I like is, oddly enough, the balance on this. While it is a little blade heavy, it's not painfully blade heavy. So flipping it isn't like a major issue, and it seems to work for the most part for this balisong. Another thing I really do love is the G10 for the scales. I find it to be grippy, like you can get a decent grip on it without it being rough on your hands. So, you know, a little more control over it without worrying about it roughing up your hands or anything. Another thing I like is the latch. Spring latches tend to usually be pretty good. I mean, it's not getting in your way there. Not getting in your way there. I mean, you know, stuff you come to expect at this point from latches is just not getting in the way. Another thing I like is the Zen pins. Now, I've had issues with tang pins in the past before where they kind of fell out just from use and abuse and that kind of good stuff. These Zen pins actually seem to be holding up pretty well, so no complaints. Not to mention the fact that it does make it a quiet flipper, which again, you know, makes it even seem a little more like a toy, but at the same time, no one can complain about noise if you have that sort of issues. One thing I do just absolutely love and think should be on most balisongs is this rounded spine. This just makes things so much more comfortable when you're flipping. You don't have to worry about the rough edges, you know, because not being rounded off. After a while, you know, that'll probably affect you more than actual cuts from the blade. So, that's something I like. Another thing I am a big fan of is the design of this. You know, I like the slotted handles. The handles are actually a decent width. So, you know, they're not gonna turn on you randomly while you're flipping or anything. It's gonna stay where you need it to until you move it, you know, flipping stuff. Find it to be comfortable in the hand, you know, if you're actually gonna use this. I mean, it works. Things I don't like though, however, are the spacers, for one. I find that they're light, they're small. I don't know if you can really see that, but they're not even completely wrapped around the pin in there that holds them in there. And to me, I don't know, that's just bothersome to me. Also, I prefer my handles to have more weight towards the back ends, and this just doesn't have that. Again, you know, it's not bad, but personal preference. Another thing, I wish it was a little heavier. Again, as I mentioned before, it kind of feels like flipping a toy. In that, I don't know, I started with a brass balisong, so this weighs like nothing. I don't know. Not to mention, it's a little harder to get momentum with this for rollovers and such. I mean, it's not bad, but you know, that's again a personal preference. The D2 tool steel. It's good for some people, especially if you're gonna, you know, use this for cutting like every day. You know, it'll hold that edge. But for someone like me who's really just using this for flipping, it requires a lot more maintenance than, say, something like 154 cm, VG10, or even 440C, because D2 is not stainless, so you're more than likely going to have some pitting or rusting issues like I kind of have going on. I don't know if you can really see that, but, you know, it happens. Another downside of the 51 is I found, and I've heard from quite a few people, is some quality control issues, more so with the liners than anything else. Mine particularly aren't bad. I mean, my liners are actually a little darker than that really bright blue that you'll see a lot of people's have, or it's advertised as having. I don't know. No complaints on that, but the one thing I do find kind of odd is that I have one liner that's actually like a purple color. I don't know, that's just a little odd to me, that one is purple and then the other three are a dark blue. No complaints, honestly. I mean, that's just aesthetic, but the clip kind of has that purple color going on there too, which, again, I guess is supposed to be that really bright blue. Again, the quality control on this was just a little off, if you ask me. I mean, it should be a lot better, but it's not affecting the flipping, so that's all I really care about. My only other major gripe with this knife is the cost. This MSRP, you're looking at 200 something bucks. I think it's like 230. Usually when you find them, they're in that like, or no, I think MSRP is like 260, and you can find them usually around 220 to 230. It's, the materials in it, I guess, are worth it, especially if you're gonna EDC this balisong. I mean, you know, D2, titanium, G10, all that, you know. And that gets pricey, but at the same time, I mean, as far as what you're really getting, to me, this just isn't worth it. You can find them in the around 170 to 160 mark, but even that to me is just too much for what you're actually getting here. I lucked out. I paid, you know, almost nothing for this in comparison to what they go for, so I'm not gonna complain, but at the same time, it's just, when I look at the prices that this thing is, it kind of sickens me. But, you know, all in all, great balisong for flipping, especially if you're just getting into it. You don't have issues with getting tired out. I mean, between the lightweight and that rounded spine, you could probably flip this thing for days without your hands getting remotely tired. Benchmade knives, I found, aren't the sharpest out of the box, so it's definitely going to be a bit more forgiving, although, you know, you're probably going to learn from your cuts, so I don't know why you'd complain about a sharp knife. Why would you have a dull knife anyway? Branding aside. Another good thing about this would be, it's good for EDC. I know a lot of people who do EDC this knife, and it's good. I've carried it a couple times, you know. It's worked well for me anyway. So yeah, all in all, good knife, pretty good flipper as far as, you know, it's better quality than a lot of other things I've flipped, so not bad, but at the same time, for the price, you could do better. Can't think of any specific examples off the top of my head, but for what you're usually paying for a 51, you could do better. Well then, I'm just going to add some flipping footage to the end of this, and hope you enjoyed the review.